Before the emergence of humanity, before the earth was graced with footsteps or the skies heard the cries of newborns, the cosmos held secrets known only to its creator. In the forgotten epochs of time, a race of beings inhabited the earth, an intelligent, purposeful, and free-willed race. These were the Jinn, fashioned by Allah from smokeless fire. Unlike the angels, who were created from light and knew no sin, the Jinn were endowed with free will, capable of both obedience and defiance, of virtue and corruption. Their civilization was shrouded in mystery as they roamed the lands, built cities, formed tribes, and mastered the world in ways humans could never comprehend. Swift and powerful, they existed in dimensions that overlapped with ours, hidden from our senses, yet present. For ages unknown, they ruled the earth, long before the first drop of clay was shaped into Adam. However, with their freedom and power came a test that would ultimately lead to their downfall. Initially, the Jinn were righteous and thankful, with many among them worshipping their creator, just as the righteous humans would later do. But as time passed, pride and ambition crept into their hearts, and their societies became entangled in arrogance and rivalry. Their thirst for control overshadowed their remembrance of Allah, and soon they turned against one another in war. The earth, once peaceful, became stained by their actions. Though not the red blood of men, blood was shed, marking the decay of their noble beginnings. Tyrants arose, proclaiming dominion over the earth, and whispers of rebellion reached the heavens. The earth, now tainted by their corruption, cried out to its creator. The fire that once symbolized their essence turned into a destructive force. They scorched the land, polluted the oceans, and silenced the righteous. As their wickedness grew, the balance of the world shattered, and the earth itself cried for salvation. In response to this, the angels, ever obedient, looked upon the chaos unfolding on earth. Though they were not given the power of choice, they felt sorrow for the state of the world. At the command of Allah, an army of angels descended, not as agents of vengeance, but as warriors of justice. Their mission was not merely to punish, but to restore balance. Leading this celestial force was Azazil, a Jinn who had remained steadfast in his worship, untouched by corruption. Due to his unwavering devotion, he had been granted a place among the angels, earning admiration for his discipline and piety. While his kin had fallen into disobedience, Azazil remained righteous, and with divine permission, the angelic host swept across the earth. The wicked Jinn tribes, overwhelmed by a force they could neither perceive nor resist, watched as their fortresses crumbled and their empires fell. The rebellion of the Jinn was brought to an end, their civilizations dissolved, and the rebellious scattered. Some fled to the most remote corners of the earth, seeking refuge in dense forests and forgotten caves. Others took shelter in the oceans and shadowed valleys, hiding from the light that had driven them away. The earth, once burdened by their transgressions, began to breathe once again. Yet, despite the war's conclusion and the angels' return to the heavens, the scars of the past remained. The survivors, the Jinn who had escaped, made a vow never to forget. Among the scattered remnants, some reflected and repented, but others carried the fire of vengeance within them. Among them, Azazil stood apart. Once celebrated among the angels, Azazil began to believe not only in his piety, but in his superiority. Watching his fallen brethren, he felt neither compassion nor fear. Instead, a growing sense of pride took root within him, a belief that he alone was worthy of greatness. This seed of pride, invisible to the angels around him, slowly began to take shape. For a time, the earth remained quiet, cleansed by divine justice. But this tranquility would not last long. Something new was coming, an unprecedented creation that would carry the legacy of the earth and face the same test of free will. This new arrival would ignite a fire within Azazil, one that would once again shake the heavens. From the ashes of the great corruption, after the angels had cleansed the earth of the chaos caused by the Jinn, peace briefly returned. The surviving Jinn, having endured the divine purge, retreated into the shadows. Some hid in caves beneath mountains, others in the depths of the seas, while many scattered across desolate and forgotten lands, struggling to survive. Yet, from the ruins of this shattered world, one figure rose above the rest, not in rebellion, but in piety. This was Azazil. Azazil, though born of the Jinn, was unlike the others. He had not only remained obedient during the uprising, but had excelled in worship to a degree that astonished even the angels. While his kin had succumbed to their desires and egos, Azazil had fasted, prayed, and submitted until he was elevated by Allah to the ranks of the angels themselves. Though not of their essence, Azazil was permitted to dwell among the angels, to ascend through the heavens, and witness things no other jinn had ever seen. He worshipped Allah in every celestial layer, in every sacred space, for thousands of years. He moved among the angels as one of them, admired for his devotion and revered for his piety. His sincerity became his crown, and many angels considered him the most righteous of all the creations endowed with free will. Yet, within Azazil, hidden even from his own awareness, a dangerous feeling began to fester, a sense of superiority. As he looked upon the fate of the rebellious jinn, he did not feel sorrow. Instead, he felt in his own restraint. He saw himself not merely as a servant of Allah, but as a beacon of excellence among the flawed. He began to compare himself not only to his fallen kin, but even to the angels with whom he walked. What began as gratitude gradually morphed into self-admiration, and pride, the very disease that had destroyed the jinn kingdoms, began to whisper into his heart. Yet this feeling was quiet, hidden, and would not emerge until his greatest test. Then came the divine decree that would alter the course of creation. Allah, the all-knowing, the most wise, announced to the angels, "Indeed, I'm going to place a vicegerent on earth." The words echoed through the heavens, stirring questions in the hearts of the angels who had witnessed the destruction wrought by the jinn. With humility and reverence, they asked, "Will you place upon it one who will cause corruption and shed blood while we glorify and praise you?" Their question was not an act of defiance, but a genuine inquiry. The angels' concerns arose from the memory of the chaos they had witnessed. They struggled to understand why Allah would create another being with free will to walk the earth, a place that had only just been cleansed from the ruin brought about by the jinn. Allah, in his infinite wisdom, responded simply, "I know what you do not know." While the angels accepted this divine command with humility, Azazil listened with curiosity, and something stirred within him. The news of a new creation, one not made of light nor of fire, but of something humble and dense, filled him with contempt. To Azazil, clay was an insult to the divine order to which he had grown accustomed. Clay was a substance that was walked upon, molded, dried, and cracked under the sun. How could such a being, formed from the dust of the earth, be worthy of the honor once given to him? He, who was created from smokeless fire, pure, powerful, and swift, began to believe that his own essence was nobler than this new creation. Though he said nothing, he watched, waiting as the angels gathered in awe. Adam began to take form, his body shaped by the hands of Allah, his features meticulously crafted, leaving him hollow for a time. Azazil circled him, examining this new creation with growing doubt. The fire within him began to burn as he watched the angels look on with wonder and submission. Azazil's suspicion deepened each day, and his internal struggle intensified. He knew Allah was perfect in wisdom, yet his pride began to wrestle with his faith. Though he did not yet rebel, his heart was no longer at peace. Then came the divine breath. When Allah breathed his spirit into Adam, the clay became life. The first man, the chosen vicegerent of earth, opened his eyes. The angels were commanded to prostrate, not in worship, but in honor. At once, the angels fell in submission, each bowing before the new creation, fulfilling the divine command without hesitation. All except one, Azazil, stood still. He refused. In that moment, what had been festering in silence erupted into open defiance. Azazil declared, "I am better than him. You created me from fire, and you created him from clay." With these words, Azazil revealed what had been hidden all along: his pride, his arrogance, and his belief that his devotion and origin made him superior. He had forgotten that true honor is granted by Allah, not earned by essence or ego. And so began his fall. Once the most devout among the Jinn, the one who had worshipped in the heights of the heavens, Azazil became the first to rebel among the new creation. In his justice, Allah cast him out, and with that expulsion, the first enemy of mankind was born, not a monster with horns or flames, but a worshipper consumed by pride. His name would now be Iblis, the one in despair. It was a despair not only of mercy, but also of his own place in the divine order, and this would drive him to a vengeance that would last until the end of time. The divine command had been issued, and the fate of creation was sealed. Allah willed it that a new being, fashioned from clay, would inherit the earth, a vicegerent, a representative not of divine perfection like the angels, nor of the raw fire like the Jinn, but of a blend of earthly weakness and heavenly purpose. His name was Adam, and through him a new chapter of existence would begin. The angels had questioned not out of defiance, but out of concern. They remembered well the chaos of the Jinn and the stench of rebellion that had once risen from the earth like smoke. Yet Allah's response silenced their doubts. "I know what you do not know." And so they waited, obedient as always, trusting in the wisdom of their Lord. Meanwhile, Adam's creation progressed in phases. From clay drawn from every color and soil of the earth, his body was shaped, tall, noble, and silent. For a time, he remained a lifeless form, a hollow shell. The angels passed by him in awe, marveling at what he would become. Azazil, now quietly burning with unease, circled him with a different gaze. He tapped upon Adam's shell, hearing the echo within. He scoffed at its emptiness and whispered to himself, "What worth lies in this hollow thing?" But Adam was destined for something far greater. When Allah breathed his spirit into Adam, the miracle unfolded. The clay came to life, and Adam's eyes opened, his limbs moved, and he stood upright. He was the only creature formed by Allah's own hands and honored with his spirit. The angels recognized the majesty of this moment and bowed in full obedience, as commanded without hesitation. All except Azazil. That single refusal, rooted in pride, fractured the unseen world. Allah questioned him directly, exposing the arrogance hidden behind years of piety. "What prevented you from prostrating when I commanded you?" Azazil's answer was a declaration of rebellion. "I am better than him. You created me from fire, and you created him from clay." In that moment, Azazil not only denied the command, but also rejected the wisdom of his creator. His worship, his years of devotion, were all nullified by the venom of his pride. In his justice, Allah expelled him. "Get down from here. It is not for you to be arrogant here. Get out. Indeed, you are of the debased." Yet even in his disgrace, Azazil made a chilling request. He asked for respite, not forgiveness nor a return, but time until the day of judgment. Allah granted it. "Indeed, you are of those reprieved." Then came the vow that would ignite a battle between truth and falsehood that would rage until the end of time. Azazil, now known as Iblis, said, "Because you have put me in error, I will surely sit in wait for them on your straight path. Then I will come to them from before them, and from behind them, from their right and from their left, and you will not find most of them grateful." This was no ordinary rebellion. It was a war declared against all of Adam's descendants, not through weapons or armies, but through whispers, deception, and the corrosion of faith. Iblis was not content with his own fall. He swore to drag as many of mankind down with him as he could. It was not just about revenge, it was about pride, about proving to Allah that this creature of clay was unworthy, that he, the Fireborn, was right all along. Thus began the era of temptation. Iblis would no longer seek Allah's pleasure. He would now spend his existence in defiance. He would become the first Shaytan and rally his own kind, the Jinn, those who still harbored resentment and rebellion, into an army of misguidance. But Allah is never unjust. Though he allowed Iblis his time, he also gave humanity guidance. Adam was not left alone. Allah taught Adam the names of all things, granting him knowledge that even the angels marveled at. He was honored not just in form, but in mind and spirit. Through Adam, his descendants would inherit the earth, not as reckless beings of chaos, but as stewards entrusted with truth, morality, and the ability to choose between obedience and rebellion. Still, Iblis watched, he planned, he whispered. And when Adam and Hawa were placed in the Garden of Paradise, living in peace under Allah's command, Iblis made his move, not with a sword, not with an army, but with a lie. He whispered deceit into their hearts, manipulating their innocence and questioning the command of their Lord. He promised them eternity, divinity, and a kingdom that would never end. And with one bite, the test began. The fall of man was not just a descent from paradise, it was the awakening of a great battle, not one of flesh and blood, but of belief and deception, obedience and pride, remembrance and forgetfulness. Iblis had succeeded in his first act of misguidance, but he had failed in his ultimate goal. For Adam, unlike Iblis, turned back to his Lord in repentance. He wept, humbled himself, and Allah forgave him. That was the difference between the two. Where Iblis clung to arrogance, Adam submitted in sorrow. From that moment on, the battlefield expanded. Mankind would now walk the earth carrying the light of divine guidance, while the Shayatin, led by Iblis, would shadow them at every step. The war was no longer just between the Jinn and the angels, it was now a struggle within mankind itself. As the influence of the Shayatin began to enter the hearts of men, what followed could not be recorded in the heavens with the clash of wings or fire. Instead, it unfolded on the unseen battlefields of the soul. The physical war between the angels and the Jinn had ended, but a deeper, more insidious war had only just begun, one waged in silence, in shadows, and in whispers. After his expulsion, Iblis, alas, did not rest. He began building an empire of darkness, a kingdom without borders that stretched across dimensions and generations. From the shattered remnants of the Jinn who had once ruled the earth, he gathered allies. Some joined him willingly, still angry at their banishment and bitter toward the rise of mankind, while others were seduced by his promises of power, revenge, and chaos. Together, they became the Shayatin, the devils, loyal not to truth or justice, but to the hatred burning in Iblis's chest. They roamed the earth unseen, ever present, whispering temptations into the hearts of men and women, planting seeds of doubt, envy, arrogance, lust, despair, and rebellion. These seeds took root in every society, every culture, adapting to each age with new disguises, new voices, and new tools, but always with the same goal: to divert humanity from the path that leads to Allah. On the other hand, the angels never ceased their divine duties. Though they no longer fought with swords in this new war, they stood as guardians, protectors, and messengers. They recorded every deed, guided those who sought the light, and descended with tranquility upon the righteous in their times of need. Every day and night, every soul was flanked by two scribes, Kiram and Katiban, writing down every word, every action. Others, like Gabriel, continued to descend with revelation, delivering the word of Allah to his chosen prophets. Some angels were tasked with protecting believers, strengthening them in prayer, and bringing peace to the hearts of those who remembered their Lord. These silent warriors, bound by absolute obedience, stood firm in their stations while the Shayatin prowled the spaces in between. But this was not a war the human eye could witness. The battle raged in the unseen, where most were unaware of its existence. Yet its effects shaped the very course of human history. Every tyrant that rose, every temptation that led people astray, every flicker of envy that destroyed families, and every whisper that caused a heart to harden. None of these were mere accidents. These were victories for Iblis's army. But they were never absolute. For Allah had not left mankind defenseless. From the moment of Adam's descent to earth, divine guidance accompanied humanity like a lantern in the night. Prophets were sent in succession, each one a beacon of truth, armed not with armies, but with the light of revelation. With every temptation came a reminder, with every whisper a verse, and with every fall the chance to rise again. This was the mercy of Allah, ensuring that no soul would be left unarmed in the face of evil. The Prophet Muhammad, the seal of the messengers, came as the final light in this war. Through him, Allah revealed not only the path to salvation, but also the strategies of the enemy. He taught mankind the tools of defense, the Quran, the remembrance of Allah, and the protective verses that drive away the devils. He showed us that the Shayatin flee from the sound of sincere dhikr, that they cannot enter homes where Surah Al-Baqarah is recited, and that Ayat al-Kursi serves as a fortress. He taught us that wudu purifies not just the body but the space around us. He showed us how to seek refuge in Allah from evil whispers, how to guard our homes, our prayers, and our thoughts. He revealed that every step toward Allah is a step away from the shayatin's grasp. Even the simplest acts, eating with the right hand, beginning with Bismillah, and entering the bathroom with the left foot, became shields in this invisible war. Islam became not just a religion, but a defense system for the soul. Through it, the believer was equipped with spiritual armor, even when he could not see the battle being waged around him. The battle unfolds all around him, and yet, despite all the tools provided, the war never pauses. It is patient, passing from one generation to the next. The shayateen do not need to rush. They wait. At every crossroads, when faith weakens, when desires grow, when hearts become heedless, they strike. They study each individual, knowing their weaknesses, exploiting their doubts. They do not need to conquer all, just enough to lead one soul astray, to make one person turn away from Allah. But despite their persistence, every time someone wakes in the last third of the night to pray, the shayatin suffer. Every time a tear is shed in sincere repentance, their plot fails. Every time the Quran is recited with reflection, a wound is struck against their army. And every time someone chooses patience over anger, honesty over deception, or trust in Allah over despair, it is not just a personal victory, but a victory for all of humanity in the face of ancient evil. However, this battle is not endless. There is an appointed time for all things, a day when the veils will be lifted and the unseen will become seen. On that day, the day of judgment, every soul will witness the truth with their own eyes. Humanity and Jinn alike will be gathered, and Iblis and his followers will be dragged forward, exposed for what they truly are. The tricks, the lies, the whispers, all laid bare. Those who followed him will try to blame him, but he will disown them. I only called you, and you responded to me, he will say. Do not blame me, but blame yourselves. The Jinn who lived righteously, obeyed Allah, and believed in his messengers will be rewarded alongside the righteous humans. But the arrogant, the rebellious, and the deceivers from both races will face the consequences of their choices. Then the angels will descend once more, not for war, but in ranks of light. They will welcome the believers, guide them to their final abode, and celebrate the triumph of truth. For in the end, the fire of pride will be extinguished by the light of humility. The whispers of the shayatin will be silenced by the eternal word of Allah, and those who stood firm, even in the face of unseen enemies, will be honored beyond imagination. The war will end. Justice will reign, and the kingdom will belong to the most merciful alone.